My guest at this time is Chris Jacobs. He's the author of The Case Against Single Payer. He's also the founder and CEO of Juniper Research Group. We want to get his insights into a policy debate that is playing out on Capitol Hill when the impeachment inquiry is not snuffing out any attention. But if you watch any cable news or even some other channels, you're seeing lots of ads related to this as well. And that's the debate over whether there should be legislation to bring down prescription drug prices. So Chris is here to explain what exactly supporters of that legislation would like to do and what the impact would actually be on price and on development of new and better medications. And Chris, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So what do the Democrats want to do here?
So the Democrats have talked a lot about prescription drug, quote, negotiation. And Nancy Pelosi released a health care bill a few weeks ago that would require the federal government to engage in, quote, negotiations with drug companies. And I say, quote, negotiations because the drug companies would be negotiating with a gun pointed to their heads. Nancy Pelosi said in the legislation that if drug companies fail to negotiate, they will be subject to an excise tax of up to 95% on their products. 95% excise tax that you cannot write off. The Congressional Budget Office said that drug companies would essentially lose money by refusing to negotiate. So this is the old mafia saying of making drug companies an offer they can't refuse because they literally cannot refuse it.
One of the arguments we keep hearing is that, well, folks in other countries pay a lot less, even from these same pharmaceutical companies that still have the patents on these drugs. So they get their drugs cheaper, but we can't. So if reducing prices artificially here isn't a good idea, why not jack it up to the same rates for everybody else?
I think there is the germ of, I mean, people do have a point that other countries get their drugs cheaper. And I think that's because other countries use socialist-style price controls to require companies to sell at lower prices. I don't think the solution is to import those socialist-style price controls to the United States. I think one solution is to use trade agreements and other mechanisms to eliminate that free riding that other countries take on our drugs, such that we pay the price in terms of greater innovation, and we pay the research and development costs so that other countries can get cheaper drugs.
Let's dig into that a little bit from both perspectives. First of all, how much time, how much money does it take often to bring a successful and widely used drug to market?
It can take up to several $1 billion and well over a decade to bring a drug to market. There are a lot of failures before you can bring a drug to market successfully. You need multiple phases of clinical trials. You need first to prove that it's safe. Then you need to prove that it's effective. There's also post-market review of drugs. And so there are significant costs to bring successful drugs to market because you not only have to pay for developing the drug that works, you also have to pay for all the drugs you developed that ended up not working.
Then on the other side of the debate, of course, you have folks saying, well, it'd be great to develop treatments that are more effective for folks coming down the line. But right now, I've got this thing. This prescription drug costs hundreds of dollars a month, which I clearly can't afford. But if I want to stay alive, I have to have it. And I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. So what methods are there to help folks pay for really expensive drugs while not kneecapping research and development for treatments down the line?
I think there are reforms, and the Trump administration has worked to implement some of them. I think approving new generic drugs and approving them faster. The Food and Drug Administration in the last several years under Scott Gottlieb, the former administrator of the FDA, approved a lot of generic drugs and approved them faster, and specifically approved ones where there were fewer generic competitors. More generic competitors in the marketplace brings down the price for drugs. I think there are some things we could do about patents and companies that are abusing the patent system. Just sort of try to evergreen drugs and keep them on patent forever so they would continue to have branded prices and not introduce generics. Those kinds of reforms we can do would increase competition and help bring down the price of drugs.
What do you expect to happen here with this legislation? Is this going to be something that probably passes the House and dies in the Senate? Does it have support in the Senate? What's the forecast here?
Senator McConnell has certainly said that the House is Nancy Pelosi's drug negotiation legislation is dead on arrival, that it's socialism and it won't go anywhere in the Senate. I think that's accurate. I think it's also a question of whether or not this gets tied into the larger impeachment discussion and gets consumed in partisanship. I think there are other measures, as I said, on patents and on generic drug approvals, et cetera, that Congress can take to increase competition and bring down prices. The question is whether or not Congress can arrive at a bipartisan agreement and put the partisan wrangling aside to enact those good pieces of legislation.
Always a good question in Washington, and always plenty of reason to be skeptical that they can in divided government. But, Chris, we really appreciate you breaking down the issue for us, and we thank you for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
Chris Jacobs is the author of The Case Against Single Payer, and he's also the founder and CEO of Juniper Research Group. I'm Greg Columbus reporting for Radio America.